The big room was full of strange creatures. Some had 4 arms, others had skin like rocks. A few floated in the air without touching the ground. They all sat in special chairs made for their different bodies. This was the Galactic Council, where all the smart alien races made big decisions about space. Commander Jake Peterson stood alone in the middle of the room. He wore his best military uniform, dark blue with shiny buttons. His black shoes were polished until they looked like mirrors. Jake was not scared, even though he was the only human in a room full of aliens who could destroy his planet. The alien, called Zektar, spoke first. He looked like a giant bug with 4 eyes and long, thin arms. When he talked, his mouth made clicking sounds that a machine changed into words Jake could understand. "The humans have said no to our kind offer," Zektar said to all the other aliens. "We wanted to protect them and help them learn about space. But they want to stay alone and do things their own way." All around the room, aliens made different sounds. Some growled, others whistled, and a few made noises like breaking glass. Jake knew they were talking about his people, and none of it sounded good. An alien that looked like a walking tree with too many branches spoke up. "New species always think they know better. They learn quickly that they need our help to survive in space." Another alien, this one covered in purple fur with 6 legs, nodded its big head. "The young ones always act tough at first. Then they see our ships and our weapons. After that, they become much more friendly." Jake listened to them talk about humans like they were children who did not know any better. These aliens had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had big fleets of warships and could destroy whole planets if they wanted to. Earth had only learned how to travel faster than light 3 years ago. General Vorth stepped forward from the back of the room. He was the biggest alien Jake had ever seen, at least 10 feet tall, with thick gray skin like an elephant. His job was to lead the hegemony's armies, and he was very good at it. His people had conquered dozens of worlds. "Look at what the humans have brought to space," General Vorth said, and waved one of his huge hands. The air above Jake's head began to glow, and pictures appeared showing Earth's space fleet. The pictures showed 12 small frigates, 8 destroyers, and 2 heavy cruisers. They were Earth's best ships, built with the newest technology humans could make. But next to the alien ships in other pictures, they looked like toys. Their whole fleet could not fight even one of our smallest dreadnoughts, General Vorth said with a laugh that sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. "These humans think they can stand against us with these tiny ships." More aliens joined in the laughter. Jake stood very still and did not change his face. He had been trained for this moment. Earth's leaders knew this meeting would not go well. But they had to try talking first. An alien that looked like it was made of living metal spoke in a voice like a computer. "We have been watching the humans since they first left their planet. They fight each other often. They make wars over small things like land and resources. They are not ready to join the peaceful races of the galaxy. That is exactly why they need our guidance," said another alien with smooth white skin and no hair. "We can teach them to be better. We can show them how to live without fighting all the time." Jake finally spoke. "We thank the Council for their offer, but humanity chooses to make its own path among the stars." The room became very quiet. All the aliens stared at Jake like he had said something crazy. Some of them made angry sounds. Zektar's 4 eyes all focused on Jake. "You do not understand what you are refusing, human. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are pirates who will steal your ships. There are diseases that can kill whole planets. There are forces out there that your people have never seen. We understand the risks," Jake said calmly, "but we also understand the cost of giving up our freedom." General Vorth stepped closer to Jake. Even though Jake was tall for a human, The alien general was twice his size. Your bravado will cost. Your species everything. We have been kind so far, but our patience has limits. Is that a threat? Jake asked. It is a promise, General Vorth replied. We have rules in this galaxy. New species follow those rules, or they learn why the rules exist. Your people will learn. An old alien with wrinkled blue skin and wise eyes spoke from the back of the room. Young human, your people are brave, but bravery without wisdom leads to destruction. We have seen many species like yours. They all started with big dreams. Proud words. Most of them are gone now. Jake looked around the room at all the aliens. He could see that some of them felt sorry for humans. Others looked angry. A few seemed interested to see what would happen next, but all of them thought humans were too weak to survive on their own. We appreciate your concern, Jake said to the old alien. But humans have survived ice ages, world wars, and plagues. We have always found a way to keep going, even when things looked impossible. Those were problems on one small planet, Zektar said. Space is much bigger and much more dangerous than anything your people have faced. Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We will see about that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. With one button press, he sent a message across space faster than light. The message was very short and went to a secret place in Earth's solar system. The message said, "Begin Operation Sledgehammer." Far away from the council meeting, people on Earth received Jake's message. They had been waiting for it and hoping. They would never need to use it. But humans had learned long ago that hope was not enough when facing Bully's dot in the darkness between planets. Something huge began to wake up. It had been hidden there for months, waiting and growing stronger. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humans had not come to space unprepared. Jake put the device back in his pocket and looked at General Vorth. We reject your offer of protection. Earth will remain free. General Vorth's eyes grew dark with anger. Then Earth will learn what happens to species who refuse our help. We will send a fleet to your system to teach your people proper respect. Send. Whatever you want, Jake said quietly. We will be ready. As Jake walked out of the council chambers, none of the aliens knew that humanity's greatest secret was already moving through space toward them. They thought humans were just another young species that would be easy to defeat. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The meeting was over, but the real test was just beginning. Soon, the galaxy would discover that humans had not spent 3 years in space just building a few small warships. They had been preparing for war against enemies they hoped they would never have to fight. The greatest battle in galactic history was coming, and nobody except the humans knew it yet. 3 weeks after the meeting at the Galactic Council, strange things began happening in space. Ships started disappearing without any warning or distress calls. At first, nobody thought much about it. Space was big and dangerous, and ships went missing all the time. But these disappearances were different. The first ones to vanish were hegemony patrol ships. 5 fast cruisers were checking the outer edges of their territory when they simply stopped responding to radio calls. Search teams found nothing where the ships should have been, not even pieces of metal or escape pods. Admiral Lisa Carter read the reports from her command chair on the bridge of a ship that officially did not exist. The UE's Retribution floated in empty space between star systems, completely invisible to any sensors the galaxy had ever built. Lisa was a small woman with short gray hair and sharp green eyes. She had been fighting wars since she was 18 years old, first on Earth and now in space. She knew how to read between the lines of military reports, and what she was reading made her smile. "Ma'am, we are getting more messages about missing ships," said Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes from his station. Ryan was young, only 25, but he was the best communications officer in the human fleet. His job was to listen to all the radio traffic in the galaxy and find useful information. "What are they saying?" Lisa asked. Ryan looked at his screen and read from the translated alien messages. "A pirate fleet that has been attacking cargo ships for 10 years just went quiet. They were in the middle of robbing a merchant vessel when all their ships stopped working. The merchant captain says the pirate ships just faded away like ghosts." Lisa nodded. The Retribution had been busy, but the galaxy did not know it yet. Earth's greatest warship was testing its weapons on criminals and enemies, learning what worked and what needed to be improved. The ship around Lisa was like nothing any alien race had ever built. It was 3 times longer than the biggest hegemony, Dreadnought, but somehow it weighed less than a human destroyer. The hull was made from materials that did not exist in normal space, and the engines used power sources that most scientists thought were impossible. But the strangest thing about the Retribution was its main weapon. Other ships used lasers, missiles, or kinetic rounds to destroy enemies. The Retribution used space itself as a weapon. It could fold reality around enemy ships, trapping them in pockets of twisted space-time, or making them disappear completely. "Any word from the Council about the missing ships?" Lisa asked. "They have lots of theories," Ryan said with a grin. "Some think it is an ancient alien defense system that woke up. Others believe interdimensional parasites are eating the ships. One group thinks the ships are being stolen by time travelers." Lisa almost laughed. The galaxy's best minds were trying to explain something that was actually quite simple. Humans had built a ship that could edit reality, and they were using it to remove threats one by one. "What about the hegemony?" Lisa asked. "Are they still planning to attack Earth?" Ryan's face became serious. "Yes, ma'am. Intelligence reports say General Vorth is gathering a punishment fleet. 300 warships, including their flagship. They want to make an example of Earth to show other species what happens when you refuse to join the Council." Lisa stood up from her chair and walked to the big window at the front of the bridge. Outside, stars shone in the darkness, looking peaceful and beautiful. But she knew that peace was about to end. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked. 4 days, Mom," Ryan replied. Lisa looked at the stars for a long moment, thinking about her home planet. Earth was small and blue and full of people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. But the galaxy would not let them have that peace. The big alien empires thought humans were too dangerous to be left alone. They were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought. "Send a message." "To Earth Command," Lisa said. "Tell them it is time for Phase 2. While Lisa and her crew prepared for the coming battle, the galaxy's intelligence services were going crazy trying to understand what was happening. The disappearances were following a pattern, but nobody could figure out what it meant. On the planet Nexus Prime, where the Galactic Council met, alien spies and military officers gathered in secret meetings. They shared information and theories, but none of them came close to the truth. Commander Zeke-Tar sat in his private office, looking at holographic displays showing the locations where ships had vanished. He had been studying the pattern for days, but it made no sense. The missing ships were all in different areas, he said to his assistant, a young alien with purple skin and 6 arms. Some were near the galactic core, others were on the outer rim. There is no connection between the locations. "What? About the types of ships?" the assistant asked. "Maybe the attacker only targets certain kinds of vessels." Zeke-Tar shook his head. "Pirates, military patrols, cargo haulers, even a few passenger liners. The attacker does not seem to care what kind of ship it is. Could it be the humans?" The assistant asked quietly. Zeke-Tar looked up from his displays. "Impossible. We have been watching their fleet. All their ships are still in their home system, preparing for General Vorth's attack. Besides, their technology is too primitive to make. Ships disappear without a trace." But even as he said it, Zektar felt a small doubt in his mind. The humans had been surprisingly confident during the council meeting. Most new species were terrified when they first met the galaxy's major powers. But the human commander had acted like he knew something. The rest of them did not dot far from Nexus Prime. In a star system nobody had ever bothered to name, a cargo ship was running for its life. The captain was a smuggler who had been breaking galactic laws for 20 years. He was good at his job and had never been caught. But today, something was hunting him. "Captain, the sensors are going crazy," his navigator said. "There is something out there, but I cannot get a clear reading on it." The captain looked at his instruments. The ship's computer was showing impossible readings. The mass detector said there was something as big as a moon nearby, but the visual scanners showed nothing but empty space. "Run a full diagnostic on all." "Systems," the captain ordered. "The sensors must be broken." Before the navigator could respond, space around their ship began to change. The stars outside the windows started to bend and twist, forming patterns that made no sense. The ship's hull began to vibrate with a sound like singing. "Captain, what is happening?" the navigator asked, but his voice sounded far away and strange. The captain tried to answer, but his words came out as colors instead of sounds. The ship around them was becoming something else, something that did not belong in normal space. Then everything went quiet, and the smuggler's ship was gone. Back on the Retribution, Lisa Carter watched the sensors confirm another successful test. The ship they had just removed was carrying weapons to a group of rebels who wanted to overthrow a peaceful government. The galaxy was now a little bit safer. "Ma'am, we are receiving a priority message from Earth," Ryan said. Lisa walked back to her command chair. "Put it on the main screen." The face of Admiral Robert Hayes appeared on the big display. He was the head of Earth's Space Command and one of the few people who knew the Retribution existed. "Lisa, the hegemony fleet is moving faster than we expected. They will reach Earth in 2 days, not 4. Are you ready?" Lisa looked around her bridge at the men and women who had trained for years to crew humanity's most advanced warship. They were ready to fight, but more than that, they were ready to protect their home. "We are ready, sir," Lisa said. "The Retribution will be in position when they arrive." "Good. And Lisa? The whole galaxy will be watching this battle. Make sure they understand what happens when someone threatens Earth." Lisa smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was a real smile. "They will understand, sir. When we are done, the galaxy will know that humans are not to be underestimated." The message ended, and Lisa turned to her crew. "All hands, prepare for combat operations. We are going home to defend Earth." As the Retribution began its journey toward the Sol system, the galaxy continued to puzzle over the missing ships. Nobody suspected that humanity's first and most powerful warship was already moving to intercept the hegemony fleet. The aliens thought they were bringing overwhelming force to crush a weak young species. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Soon, the universe would learn that humans had not come to space as conquerors or diplomats. They had come as protectors of their own world, and they had brought weapons that could make reality itself into their ally. The Battle of Sol was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The hegemony war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system in perfect battle formation. 300 warships spread across space like a metal cloud, each one bigger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. At the center of the formation was the conquest of stars, a massive dreadnought that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. Admiral Zarthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the small blue planet that had dared to defy the Galactic Council. He was old for his species, with gray scales and scars from dozens of battles. He had conquered 17 worlds in his long career, and Earth would be the 18th. "Sir, we are detecting the human fleet moving to intercept us," his tactical officer reported. The officer was young and eager, excited to be part of such an important battle. Zarthik looked at the display showing the approaching human ships. 14 vessels total, just like the intelligence reports had said. Even with their entire fleet, the humans were outnumbered more than 20 to 1. "Maintain formation," Zarthik ordered. "Let them come to us. I want them to see the full size of our fleet before they die." The human ships moved closer, led by a heavy cruiser called the UES Constitution. Zarthak had studied the files on that ship and its captain, Steve Morrison. The humans had made Morrison a hero after he won a battle against space pirates near their colony world. But pirates were not the same as a real military force. "Sir, the human commander is requesting to speak with you," the communications officer said. Zarthak laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Put him on the main screen. Let the whole fleet hear what this fool has to say." Captain Morrison's face appeared on screens throughout the hegemony fleet. He was a man of about 40, with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Space Navy, and he did not look afraid. "Hegemony fleet, you are ordered to withdraw from Sol Space immediately," Morrison said in a clear, strong voice. The response was immediate. Laughter echoed across the communication channels as hundreds of alien officers heard the demand. The sound was translated into different languages, but the meaning was the same everywhere. The humans were being ridiculous. "Surrender now, and we will make your extinction quick," Zarthik replied. "Your ships are toys compared to our dreadnoughts. Your people will learn what happens when they refuse the Council's generous offers." Morrison looked directly into the camera, and his expression never changed. "You were warned." Those two words sent a chill through some of the hegemony officers, though they could not say why. There was something in the human captain's voice that suggested he knew something they did not dot at that moment. Every sensor in the hegemony fleet began screening warnings. Something massive had just appeared directly behind their formation, something that had not been there a second before. Zarthik spun around to look at his tactical display, and his blood turned to ice. A single contact had appeared, but the readings made no sense. The ship was huge, at least 3 times the size of his flagship, but the mass readings were impossible. The energy signatures were off every known scale. "What is that thing?" someone whispered over an open communication channel. On the bridge of the Constitution, Captain Morrison smiled for the first time since the battle began. "That, Admiral Zarthik, is the UES Retribution, and she has a message for you." The mysterious ship that had appeared behind the hegemony fleet was like nothing any of them had ever seen. It was sleek and dark, with curves that seemed to bend light around them. Strange energies danced along its hull, and space itself seemed to ripple near the vessel. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking out at the enemy fleet spread before her ship. She had been waiting for this moment. For 3 years, ever since Earth's leaders decided they needed a weapon that could protect their world from any threat. "Open a channel to all ships in the system," Lisa ordered. Her voice cut through the silence like a knife. Every human ship, every hegemony vessel, and even the space stations orbiting Earth received her message at the same time. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Earthship Retribution. You are trespassing in human space. Leave now or be removed." The words were simple and direct, but they carried a weight that made even veteran soldiers feel afraid. This was not a threat or a bluff. This was a promise. Admiral Zarthik stared at his tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The human ship's energy readings were beyond anything in his experience. The gravitational distortions around it suggested a mass It should have collapsed into a black hole. But somehow, it was still a ship. "Run a full sensor sweep on that vessel," he ordered his science officer. "I want to know everything about it." The science officer worked frantically at his controls, but after several minutes, he looked up with confusion on his face. "Sir, the sensors cannot get a proper reading. The ship seems to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Our instruments show it is there, but they also show it is not there." "That is impossible," Zarthik said. "Yes, sir, it should be impossible. But the readings do not lie." Around the hegemony fleet, officers and crew members stared at their screens in growing panic. They had come to Earth expecting to fight primitive humans with simple weapons. Instead, they were facing something that appeared to violate the basic laws of physics. "Sir, what are your orders?" the tactical officer asked. Zarthik looked at the human ship one more time. Everything in his military training told him to attack immediately, before the enemy could gain any more advantage. But something deep in his mind was screaming warnings. "All ships, open fire on the unknown vessel," he finally ordered. "Concentrate all weapons on the target." The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams, kinetic rounds, missile swarms, and energy weapons that could crack a planet's crust, all focused on the retribution. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon, but as the weapons approached the human ship, something impossible happened. The incoming fire simply stopped existing. Plasma beams faded away like they had never been fired. Kinetic rounds disappeared into nothing. Missiles vanished before they could detonate. The Retribution's defensive systems did not block or deflect the incoming weapons. They edited them out of reality entirely, as if they had never existed in the first place. "Impossible," Zarthik breathed, watching his fleet's most powerful weapons have no effect at all. "What kind of monsters are these humans?" Admiral Carter watched the enemy attack with calm professional interest. The Retribution's reality distortion fields were working perfectly, protecting the ship by making attacks against it cease to exist. It was humanity's greatest scientific achievement, and it was about to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. "All weapons, prepare to fire," Carter ordered her crew. "Let's show them what humans can do when we stop playing nice." The Retribution's weapons were not like anything else in the galaxy. They did not use energy or matter to destroy targets. They used the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The first weapon to fire was called the Cascade Generator. It sent a pulse of twisted space-time toward the lead squadron of hegemony dreadnoughts. When the pulse hit the enemy ships, space around them began to fold and compress. The 12 mighty warships did not explode or break apart. They were squeezed into impossibly small points of collapsed space-time before vanishing entirely. 12 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a city, simply stopped existing. "Dear gods," whispered a hegemony communications officer, his voice being broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "They are not fighting us. They are erasing us." But the Retribution was just getting started. The second weapon system came online, and Admiral Carter selected her targets carefully. She did not want to destroy the entire enemy fleet at once. She wanted them to understand what they were facing. The temporal distortion cannons fired next, creating rifts in space-time itself. Enemy ships caught in these rifts found themselves trapped in loops of time, reliving the same moment of destruction, over and over again. From outside the loops, they appeared frozen in place, locked in eternal moments of their own death. Captain Morrison watched from the Constitution as the impossible battle unfolded. The hegemony fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming just minutes before, was being systematically dismantled by weapons that operated beyond known science. "My God," he whispered to his first officer, Commander Kate Williams, "what have we built?" Kate was a veteran of the colony wars and she had seen her share of destruction. But this was different. This was not war, as she understood it. This was something new and terrifying. The end of anyone who threatens Earth, she replied quietly. A wing of hegemony fighters managed to get past the Retribution's outer defenses, diving toward the human ship at maximum speed. But instead of being destroyed when they hit the hull, something even stranger happened. The fighters were absorbed into the ship's structure, becoming part of it. Inside the Retribution, security cameras showed the truth. The enemy fighters had not been captured or destroyed. They had been integrated into the ship's systems, their technology and databases being analyzed and incorporated in real time. The Retribution was not just fighting the enemy fleet. It was learning from them, adapting, becoming stronger with every attack. Admiral Zarthek watched his fleet being The Battle of Seoul lasted exactly 47 minutes and 12 seconds. It would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned that humanity did not just wage war. They had perfected it into something beyond the understanding of any other species. Admiral Zarthek sat frozen in his command chair, watching his tactical display show the impossible. His fleet of 300 warships, the pride of the hegemony military, was being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel that seemed to operate outside the laws of physics. "Sir, we are losing contact with the 4th Battle Group," his communications officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. "Their ships are just fading away." The Retribution moved through the hegemony formation like a force of nature, its weapons creating effects that no military academy had ever taught officers to defend against. Space itself was being turned into a weapon, and the enemy fleet was helpless against it. Admiral Lisa Carter stood calmly on her bridge, watching the battle unfold with the eye of a professional soldier. She had spent 30 years learning how to fight, from ground battles on Earth to the first skirmishes with space pirates. But this was different. This was not a battle between equals. This was an execution. "Target the carrier group at coordinates 77 Alpha," she ordered her weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Daniel Price. "Use the entropy cascade." Daniel was one of the few humans who truly understood how the Retribution's weapons worked. He had helped design them, spending years learning how to weaponize the fundamental forces of reality. His hands moved across his control panel with practiced precision. "Entropy cascade ready, Mom," he reported. Fire, the weapon that struck. The hegemony carrier group was not like anything else in the galaxy. Instead of using energy or matter to destroy targets, it accelerated the natural process of decay that affected all things in the universe. The enemy ships did not explode or break apart. They simply aged millions of years in a few seconds. There, hulls cracking and crumbling, as if they had been floating in space for eons. The crews inside the ships experienced something even stranger. As their vessels aged around them, they felt time itself slowing down. What seemed like hours to them was only seconds to outside observers. They had enough time to understand what was happening to them, but not enough time to do anything about it. "Dear gods, what are they doing to us?" Admiral Zarthek whispered, watching another squadron of his ships fade into ancient dust. His science officer, a brilliant mathematician named Kefler, was frantically trying to understand the readings from their sensors. "Sir, the humans are not using conventional weapons. They are manipulating the basic structure of space-time itself. This should be impossible with any known technology." "Then how are they doing it?" Zarthek demanded. Kefler looked at his instruments again, hoping he had made a mistake. But the readings were clear, even if they made no sense. "I do not know, sir. They appear to be using principles of physics that our science says cannot exist." While the hegemony officers struggled to understand what was happening to them, the Retribution continued its systematic destruction of the enemy fleet. Each weapon system on the human ship used different aspects of reality as ammunition that the quantum disruptors fired next, targeting a group of heavy cruisers that were trying to retreat to a safe distance. The weapon created zones of altered quantum probability around the enemy ships, making it impossible for their atoms to maintain cohesion. The ships did not explode. They simply stopped being ships and became clouds of disconnected particles floating in space. "Ma'am, we are receiving surrender signals from multiple enemy vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes from his communications station. Admiral Carter looked at the tactical display, which showed the remnants of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Less than 50 ships remained operational out of the original 300, and most of those were trying to flee. "Ignore the surrender signals," she ordered. "We are not here to take prisoners. We are here to send a message." Captain Steve Morrison watched the battle from the bridge of the Constitution, his human fleet holding position at a safe distance from the carnage. His first officer, Commander Kate Williams, stood beside him with a look of mixed awe and horror on her face. "Lisa is not taking any prisoners," Kate observed quietly. Steve nodded grimly. "This is not about winning a battle. This is about making sure no one ever threatens Earth again." The Retribution's next weapon was perhaps the most terrifying of all. The reality anchor disruptors fired at a squadron of hegemony destroyers, creating zones where the normal laws of physics simply stopped working. Inside these zones, matter and energy behaved according to rules that made no sense. Some of the enemy ships found their hulls turning into liquid while their engines became solid. Others discovered that their weapons were now firing backwards, destroying their own vessels. A few ships experienced time running in reverse, with their crews growing younger until they ceased to exist. The weapon was selective, affecting only enemy vessels, while leaving space around them untouched. It was a demonstration of control that terrified the surviving hegemony officers more than simple destruction would have. Zarthik tried, desperately, to find some way to fight back against the impossible human ship. All remaining vessels, concentrate fire on the enemy's engine section. If we can disable their propulsion, maybe we can escape. The surviving ships of his fleet launched everything they had at the Retribution's rear section. Plasma cannons, missile volleys, and kinetic impactors all converged on the human ship's engines. But the Retribution's defensive systems were as advanced as its weapons. The reality distortion fields around the ship did not just stop incoming attacks. They prevented the attacks from ever having existed in the first place. The enemy weapons fired, but the universe was convinced they had never been launched. "Impossible reading, sir," Kethler reported, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our weapons are firing, but they are not arriving at the target. It is as if space itself is refusing to allow them to exist." The final demonstration of the Retributions. Power came when Admiral Carter decided to show the galaxy exactly what humanity was capable of. She ordered the activation of the ship's most powerful weapon, something the designers had called the Existence Editor. "Target the enemy flagship," she ordered, "but do not destroy it. I want them to survive long enough to tell others what they have seen." The Existence Editor reached out across space and touched the conquest of stars with invisible fingers of twisted reality. The massive dreadnought did not explode or break apart. Instead, it began to change. The ship's weapon systems simply stopped working, not because they were damaged, but because the universe no longer recognized them as weapons. The engines continued to function, but they could only move the ship away from Earth, never toward it. The communication systems still worked, but they could only send messages, never receive orders to attack. Admiral Zarthik felt his flagship shudder as reality around it was rewritten. His weapons officer reported that all combat systems were offline, but the diagnostic computers insisted they were working perfectly. His navigation officer said the ship could move, but only in directions that led away from the human solar system. "What have they done to us?" Zarthik asked, but he already knew the answer. The humans had not just defeated his fleet. They had edited it out of existence as a threat, changing the basic nature of his ships so they could never again be used to attack Earth. The remaining hegemony vessels, seeing what had happened to their flagship, broke formation and fled toward the hyperspace jump point. But even their escape was controlled by the Retribution. Some ships were allowed to leave immediately, carrying news of the battle to the rest of the galaxy. Others were delayed, forced to watch the destruction for longer, so they would have more complete stories to tell. Admiral Carter watched the enemy fleet scatter like leaves in a storm. The demonstration was complete. Earth's message had been delivered, in a language that every military force in the galaxy would understand. "Damage report," she ordered her crew. "No damage to report, Mom," came the reply from multiple stations. All systems operating at optimal efficiency. The Retribution had fought a battle against 300 warships and emerged without a single scratch. More than that, the ship had actually grown stronger during the fight, incorporating technology and tactical data from every enemy vessel it had encountered. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral Carter, this is the Constitution. The Sol Defense Fleet reports all human vessels are undamaged and ready for further operations." "Thank you, Captain," Lisa replied. "Form up on our position. We are going to escort our guests to the edge of the system." The few surviving hegemony ships limped toward the hyperspace jump point, followed at a respectful distance by the Retribution and the human fleet. It was not necessary to follow them, but Admiral Carter wanted to make sure the galaxy understood that humanity was choosing to let them leave Dot as the battered remains of the once mighty fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Admiral Zarthik sent one final message to the human ship that had destroyed his forces. "Human Admiral, what you have done today will bring the wrath of the entire galaxy down upon your species. Every civilized race will unite." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 6 hours of the Battle of Sol. Every major power in the galaxy sent their highest-ranking representatives, and many came in person rather than sending holographic projections. The chamber that had once been filled with political arguments and power games was now silent with a fear that none of them wanted to admit. Ambassador Jake Peterson walked into the same room where humanity had been dismissed as primitive just weeks before, but everything had changed. Where once there had been empty seats and bored expressions, now every chair was filled with aliens who watched his every move with careful attention. The chamber itself looked different too. Additional security screens had been installed, and armed guards stood at every entrance. The galaxy's leaders were taking no chances with the species that had just demonstrated the ability to rewrite the laws of physics. Jake wore the same dress uniform he had worn to the first meeting, dark blue, with polished buttons and shiny shoes. But now the uniform seemed to carry more weight, more authority. He was no longer representing a weak species, asking for acceptance. He was speaking for the civilization that had just terrified the entire galaxy. Commander Zektar stood at the central podium, his 4 eyes focused on Jake with a mixture of respect and fear. The arrogant dismissal from their previous meeting was completely gone, replaced by the careful politeness reserved for dangerous equals. "The human delegation is recognized," Zektar said formally. "We have called this emergency session to discuss the recent events in the Sol system and their implications for galactic stability." Jake walked slowly to the speaker's platform, his footsteps echoing in the unusually quiet chamber. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him, all wondering what humanity would demand now that they had proven their power. "The human delegation appreciates the Council's prompt attention to this matter," Jake began, his voice calm and measured. "We understand that recent events have caused concern throughout the galaxy." On the main display screen, footage from the Battle of Sol played in a continuous loop. Ships vanishing into folded space reality itself being weaponized. The mighty hegemony fleet reduced to scattered refugees in less than an hour. Every time the aliens watched it, they saw something new and terrifying. We want to make our position clear, Jake continued. Earth has no interest in conquest or domination. We do not seek to rule other worlds or impose our will on other species. We simply wish to exist in peace, free to explore the galaxy and develop relationships with civilizations that share our values. General Vorth, the same hegemony commander who had laughed at human weakness during the first meeting, now stood with his head bowed in respect. His voice, when he spoke, was barely above a whisper. What are your terms for peace? He asked. Jake smiled, but it was not the same smile from their previous encounter. This one carried the weight of absolute power behind it. No terms, no demands, no tribute or territory. We want exactly what we wanted before, to be left alone to grow and learn about the universe. But surely, interrupted an alien diplomat from the Crystalline Federation, after such a demonstration of power, you must have expectations about how the galaxy should treat your species. Jake looked around the chamber at all the frightened faces staring back at him. These were the same beings who had dismissed humanity as too primitive to survive in space. Now they were desperately trying to understand what Earth might want from them. Our expectations are simple, Jake replied. We expect to be treated as equals. We expect our territory to be respected. We expect our ships to travel freely through space without harassment. And we expect that anyone who threatens Earth will face the same fate as the hegemony fleet. The last sentence hung in the air like a sword over the assembly. Every alien in the chamber understood the message. Humanity was offering friendship to those who wanted it, but destruction to anyone who chose to be an enemy. An old alien with wrinkled skin and wise eyes, the same one who had warned Jake about the dangers of space during their first meeting, stood slowly from his seat. Young human, your people have certainly proven they can defend themselves, but great power brings great responsibility. How can we trust that humanity will not become the very threat you have protected yourselves against? It was a fair question, and Jake had been expecting it. Every species that achieved dominance in the galaxy eventually faced the temptation to use that power for conquest. The aliens needed to know that humans would be different. You can trust us because we have already shown restraint, Jake answered. The retribution could have destroyed every ship in the hegemony fleet in minutes. Instead, we disabled them and allowed most to escape. We could have followed up our victory by attacking hegemony worlds, but we returned to defensive positions around Earth. Power without restraint is not strength, it is weakness. The chamber erupted in quiet discussions as aliens spoke to each other in dozens of different languages. Jake could not understand most of what they were saying, but he could read their body language. Fear was slowly being replaced by cautious hope. Admiral Zarthek, a hegemony commander who had led the attack on Earth, appeared on the main screen via holographic projection. His ship was still limping back to hegemony space, damaged but allowed to leave with his crew intact. I can confirm what the human says, Zarthek announced to the assembly. My flagship was disabled, not destroyed. My crew was spared. The human ship could have killed us all, but chose not to. This shows either great wisdom or great strategy. What is the difference? Asked another alien delegate. Wisdom seeks to avoid unnecessary death, Zarthek replied. Strategy seeks to send a message that will prevent future conflicts. I believe the humans possess both qualities. Jake nodded respectfully to the hegemony admiral. Admiral Zarthek and his crew fought bravely for what they believed was right. We have no quarrel with soldiers who follow orders. Our conflict was with the decision to attack Earth, not with the beings who carried out that decision. The political implications of Jake's words spread through the chamber like ripples in a pond. Humanity was offering forgiveness to their enemies and partnership to their allies. But underlying that offer was the clear understanding that future attacks would not be met with such mercy that an ambassador from the Trade Federation, a group of merchant species that controlled much of the galaxy's commerce, stood to address Jake directly. If humanity truly seeks only peaceful coexistence, would your people be willing to engage in trade and cultural exchange with other species? We would welcome such opportunities, Jake replied. Earth has much to offer the galaxy, and much to learn from other civilizations. We believe that peaceful cooperation benefits everyone. But then his expression grew more serious. However, we will not allow trade or diplomacy to be used as tools to control or manipulate our species. Any agreements we make will be between equals, or they will not be made at all. The Trade Federation ambassador nodded quickly. After seeing what had happened to the hegemony fleet, no one was interested in trying to manipulate humanity. As the session continued, a new picture of galactic politics began to emerge. The old system, where established powers decided the fate of newer species, was clearly dead. In its place was arising a new order where humanity served as a counterbalance to any group that became too aggressive or controlling. We have one more thing to share with the Council, Jake announced as the formal session began to wind down. Construction of the Retribution's sister ships is proceeding on schedule. The U.E.S. Vengeance and U.E.S. Reckoning should be operational within the year. The statement was a complete lie. There were no sister ships under construction, and might never be. But the galaxy did not need to know that. The mere possibility that humanity might have more reality-warping battleships was enough to ensure that Earth would never again face the kind of overwhelming force that the hegemony had brought to. Jake could see the effect his words had on the assembly. Already nervous aliens became even more cautious, while those who had been considering friendly relations with Earth became more eager to establish good relationships quickly. As Jake prepared to leave the podium, Commander Ziktar addressed him. One final time. The Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth as a sovereign world and humanity as a full member of the galactic community. We look forward to peaceful relations with your species. It was everything humanity had wanted from the beginning: recognition, respect, and the right to chart their own course among the stars. But they had been forced to earn it through a demonstration of power that had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. Jake walked out of the council chambers knowing that the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had gone from unknown newcomers to the ultimate apex predator in a single battle. Trade routes were already being rerouted to include Earth as a major stop. Diplomatic missions were being planned by dozens of species eager to establish good relations with the civilization that could weaponize reality itself. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy's bullies had learned that there was now a force in the universe that could and would stop them. Pirates thought twice before attacking ships near Earth's expanding territory. Aggressive empires reconsidered their expansion plans. The mere existence of humanity's impose